Gorilla refuses to let others near. Then Staff looked at his hands. Welcome to Mefou Primate Sanctuary in Cameroon, home of Bobo the ape, one of the 300-plus gorillas, chimpanzees, and monkeys in the sanctuary. Bobo became the most popular after staff members noticed he was acting very secretive. Even his daily caretakers couldn't figure out what the fierce primate was keeping from them. Then they finally got a glimpse at his hands, which unraveled the bigger picture. What was Bobo the gorilla trying to hide? You don't just go up to an ape and demand to see what's in his hands, especially if he's been hiding it from you. Instead of approaching Bobo, the staff studied him from afar, observing his every move. When Bobo began hiding in the tall grass, workers began to grow fearful. He had a history of being difficult to work with. When Bobo was just 2 years old, he arrived at the Mefou Primate Sanctuary, orphaned after poachers snatched his mother from his clutches. Naturally, he wasn't too fond of humans at the time. He would often hide away as a baby, refusing to let humans come near. How would he respond now when humans were once again attempting to take something away from him? After being hurt so deeply at such a young age, it was only natural for Bobo to seek control in his new environment. Soon, the 350-pound Bobo was the most dominant gorilla in the sanctuary, even though he'd been challenged several times for the top spot. Younger males, Kaboo and Nakamum, once challenged Bobo for his position, said one of Bobo's closest caretakers, Alyssa. They were never successful and no longer attempt to take control, and never managed to become champions of the environment. So it was the biggest, toughest ape holding something in his hands at the sanctuary. Fortunately, over the years, Alyssa had managed to get closer to Bobo as he grew into adulthood. She discovered that Bobo was really a sweet, loving creature with no desires to be aggressive. Despite his gigantic stature, Bobo was never violent with the other apes. That's why his sudden change in behavior concerned staffers who knew that trauma could pop back up at any time. Bobo's strange behavior, not letting staffers see his hands, was quite the opposite of what one would expect from the king of the jungle. According to Alyssa, it seemed like Bobo's confidence had vanished. The once confident and fierce gorilla was now hiding away in the foliage, refusing to let anyone near. This got Alyssa worried about Bobo's well-being. Not only was Bobo shying away from caretakers who came near, but he was also staying clear of other apes. Somehow he'd been able to keep his secret from even the most curious primates in his enclosure. Finally, caretakers noticed that Bobo was paying special attention to his hands. Alyssa realized that the giant ape was holding something, and it was alive. Once the sanctuary workers realized that Bobo had a living creature with him, things changed big time. Whatever was in there could pose a threat to all the apes and humans around, especially if Bobo went in full protection mode. One day, when Bobo wandered off from his grassy lair, Alyssa decided to explore his hiding spot. Alyssa stayed low and combed through the grass, checking for signs of dug holes or even a nest. Unfortunately, her search turned up nothing. When she saw Bobo coming back, Alyssa quickly exited the foliage and hid, empty-handed. Where was the thing he'd been holding? From a safe distance away, Alyssa watched Bobo re-enter the grass and realized why her search was a failure. Because Bobo had kept the creature on him the whole time. He definitely wasn't going to make this easy mission. What could Alyssa do now? Days passed and the staff grew more and more concerned. Soon, Alyssa began to hear crying from Bobo's clutches, making the ape even more protective. It seemed the food Bobo had been attempting to feed the small creature wasn't quite right. What could this small, crying critter be? Staff began to put the pieces together. Alyssa reasoned that the small creature couldn't be a monkey from the sanctuary, as it was far too small. However, it could be a baby, though that also seemed unlikely as the staff kept a close eye on all the newborns. And it couldn't be a rodent as it was sitting so peacefully in Bobo's grasp. They realized it must be a creature from outside the sanctuary. But what? Alyssa grabbed a pair of binoculars and sat for hours waiting for the right angle. She was determined to get a glimpse of the little animal, which Bobo had successfully concealed for so long. Finally, she was able to get a close-up at the object of Bobo's obsession, and it was another primate. Unlike the other primates at the sanctuary, this intruder was extremely small. Galagos, also known as bush babies, are tiny lemur-like monkeys that make a distinct sound, explaining all the crying from earlier. Despite Bobo's fondness for his break-in buddy, the staff knew it wouldn't be right for the Galago to stay, and yet the bond between the two unlikely friends said otherwise. The bush baby showed no fear of Bobo, moving around his body and spending time hopping around in an open, grassy area before choosing to return to Bobo, said Alyssa. However, she couldn't figure out why the animal had showed up at all. Bush babies are usually nocturnal, so it's very rare to see one, she said. Even rarer to witness this kind of interaction. Soon other apes at the sanctuary began to take notice as well. A dominant gorilla feeding and caring for a bush baby doesn't go unnoticed by the pack. In fact, Alyssa noticed that the other apes were now fascinated by Bobo and his little pet. Who wouldn't be taken aback by a cross-species relationship like this? Now the enclosure was becoming a dangerous place for the Galago, and Bobo knew it. Wild primates and rescued ones seldom interact with each other like this, says Alyssa. They're either at a sanctuary or they're in the jungle. We've never witnessed a wild primate interacting with a rescued one. Given the unusual nature of its interaction, it was no surprise when Bobo finally figured out the dangers of keeping a companion like this one, especially when other apes started showing signs of aggression. Bobo's group mates were desperately curious, and he kept them all at a distance, making sure no one disturbed his new friend, said Alyssa. This constant protection was all too familiar for Bobo, whose mother experienced the same kind of threats before succumbing to poachers. That's when Bobo did something truly amazing. Just as caretakers were wondering how they'd managed to separate the bush baby from the defensive ape, Bobo did something that took the staff by surprise. Alyssa even managed to capture the incident on tape. The recording instantly went viral, receiving over 1 million views worldwide. What were viewers so fascinated by? Just as the sanctuary was becoming too dangerous for a tiny bush baby to survive, even with a giant ape by its side, Bobo decided to say goodbye to his little pal. The 350-pound gorilla rushed to place the tiny primate onto a tree branch that was peeking in from outside the enclosure, returning the bush baby to the wild from which it came. These gorillas have a very nurturing and empathic nature. The human race could learn from these beautiful, thoughtful animals, wrote one viewer of the video. Exactly why I love gorillas, because they're amazingly gentle giants who are extremely intelligent animals, said another. Alyssa was so proud of Bobo, who could have easily given in to temptation and kept the bush baby by its side. Don't forget to subscribe for more inspirational stories.